We have very special guest with us today. We have got Trevor and Sunny from Sapien. Sapien is an amazing platform where people help improve AI by creating data. So it's basically like a set of businesses with a global network of AI workers, who are constantly, getting rewarded, for all the data tasks, that they complete. And then they have this amazing gamification model as well, where it's attracting, like thousands of new retail customers. Some key stats about Sapien is they've raised more than 15 million. They've got some amazing VCs like Variant, Animoca, and Primitive Ventures. So let's deep dive into Sapien's journey. So welcome to the Onchain India podcast, Trevor and Sunny.
Thanks, Pratik. Great to be here, man.
Likewise.
Awesome. So Trevor and Sunny, let's start with your Web3 journey. On how did you come up in this space? What was the attraction point for you?
Totally. I'm from Toronto, so that's where just very lucky. That's where Ethereum was founded. I was quite involved in the early Bitcoin scene prior to Ethereum. That's where Sunny and I met, and then Ethereum kind of came like out of a shotgun and just became what it is today. And we were right there in the building that it was kind of created out of, and we haven't looked back. So I eventually launched my own project called Polymath, which was an app on Ethereum that became an L1. That's one of the leading RWA networks today. And then Sapien was my new project that Sunny and I and my other co-founder, Rowan, are working on, who's a co-creator of Base with Jesse over at Coinbase.
Yeah, just in short, I think Trevor covered it nicely. My background as well, I've been in Bitcoin in the Toronto scene mostly. I also started India's first Bitcoin exchange called UnoCoin. It's been in business for 11 years now. And I also worked as the head of business development at Kraken for a few years. And yeah, happy to be on this call.
Awesome. Great to know about the backgrounds. I think one of the most interesting problems, especially for early stage developers and founders, is choosing on the right idea, right? Because when we start, we have those couple of ideas that we think could really go big, and we find big GTM, all sort of good things, but sometimes it's a very nightmare because you choose an idea and then again you have those dual thoughts, whether this one is the right or not or something. So how was your mental model, while, choosing out the Sapien idea, and what was those convincing points that, hey, this is what it is and it's going to be big?
It happened organically. I had a friend who was a machine learning master's graduate from Waterloo, which is a well-known technical university where I'm from. It's where Chamath Palihapitiya went to school as well. And a lot of like really smart and Canada also, we have a lot of street cred with crypto and also AI. We at the University of Toronto, I should say, was kind of like a melting pot for the top researchers like Ilya, who went to work at Tesla and OpenAI, and also Jeff Hinton, who's kind of the forefather of AI. So my friend Bowen, he and I were chatting about kind of different exciting areas of machine learning and data, and throughout that process, we kind of realized that there's an intersection between kind of the decentralized architecture of crypto and Web3, and then how that might interface with AI broadly, and more specifically decentralized AI data, and how like a new architecture for the way data is produced and cleaned and sourced and structured in a kind of a global on-chain economy is actually pretty exciting. And it wasn't long after that, about a year and a bit ago, that we officially launched Sapien.
Awesome. I think after you finalize the idea, and I think having seen Sapien's journey very closely with both of you in the last 6 months, I think the global AI Web3 scene has also been picked up, and obviously it was pretty like a global movement where everyone wanted to have something in it, right? The next question, Trevor and Sunny, is like, how did you guys plan the fundraising journey? I know you have some of the bit of background which obviously helped in probably getting the seed stage, but specifically in the current round, that you have? What sort of metrics, or how do the developers generally plan their fundraising strategy around it?
Yeah, so for us, like, you don't want to necessarily chase the market or chase hot narratives. I think it's important to find a real problem or a real like thing that's exciting to you, the founder, because it's your job to really get the thing started. For me, it was just like realizing, AI is really just three components of like three pillars of data, compute, and algorithms. And we kind of just like have a thesis, right? So as I was just learning, not for any reason of starting a business, just like out of interest, and then you kind of go where your curiosity takes you. And for me, that was like, hey, what kind of data is useful, and what's the difference between high quality data and low quality data, and what about specialized data in a vertical from a human or generalized synthetic data? So it's just like kind of learning about the whole space. And then once you develop a thesis, that's like a stake in the ground you can raise a seed round off of. And I've been a founder for a while now, but it's never easy. Like even when we launched, even with my past success in crypto, you have to really think thoughtfully about who you want in your round. The seed round that we did was in a pretty bad bear market. So in some ways that's more difficult. In some ways it's better because there's less noise, there's less competition. And if you just look at the data, some of the best companies, not exclusively, but like at a high degree of like standard deviation, a lot more companies that are generational are created during bear markets. Like you look at Web2, it's like Facebook and the dot-com bubble and Google and Amazon and all these guys were created in bear market. It forces you to like really bootstrap. It forces you to take on capital more thoughtfully. In terms of tactics on the fundraise, a lot of it is just running a process and making sure you're being efficient. Your time, you shouldn't be doing anything except fundraising when you're fundraising, in my view, but you should try to keep it as short as possible because your job is to really grow a business, not to fundraise. So I think it's important for folks to kind of set a window to be very targeted, but also you want to like get a lot of leads in the funnel and then just run a really tight process and build some deal heat, some deal momentum. And look, you want to just get a deal done. Like even if you don't optimize the perfect cap table or the perfect valuation, that's okay, because you don't win or lose on your first round. It's just like a milestone along the way. So and it does matter, like being able to close a round. Ideally, you never have to. You just bootstrap forever. But in the real world, typically capital helps. And if you can bring in strategic capital, it's a signal to the market that this is a project worth keeping an eye on. It helps raise future rounds, and it helps recruit talent as well. Some talent prefers venture-backed companies because it's a little more stable. So I would encourage everybody to, never fun. It's never easy, but it's a necessary evil of starting a big company in some cases.
Amazing. I think post fundraising and like whatever the round that is being raised, I think one of the fundamental is on the product as well, right? Because I think the initial idea or the initial big TAM kind of thing usually fades away if product is not well positioned. How was Sapien's product journey being, because you guys started in the bear market, we are almost at a peak where I think everything seems to be so smooth in the next upcoming months with all the regulations and stuff. How was your product planning kind of a strategy? How to acquire customers, the feedback loop and everything around it?
Yeah, so getting users it's a good forcing function because it forces you to have a product. It doesn't have to be a good product, but it forces you to have a product. It forces you to like learn. It forces you to like get feedback from people using it, and it forces you to have goals that you can kind of set as a company in terms of your whatever your North Star metric is. Usually, it's users or revenue in some way. For us, we thought a lot about distribution, so we knew we needed human labelers. That was our target market. It was like regular folks that can like structure AI data and are like open to doing it in kind of like a less developed Web3 environment. And so for us, it was a lot of like, okay, well, how can we get users? Like, it's just like creating a product strategy, creating a distribution strategy. You got to experiment and you got to try different channels. And for us, it wasn't the ones that I expected originally that got us a lot of users. It was different. So for example, we started out trying to do kind of more organic growth and referral based growth, and we got some usage out of that. But it wasn't until we did some strategic partnerships that we really started getting that kind of hockey stick growth chart, which was partnerships with companies like WorldCoin, partnerships with like Telegram apps like TapSwap, like projects you wouldn't expect. But those users just really poured it over well to what we were doing because they're already kind of red pilled in the on-chain world. And they all also want to like earn in some way. And we're kind of like an play to earn type business / product. And so that was a big takeaway for us. And it's not ending. Like we're constantly trying new channels for getting new users and then engaging them. That's part 2, right? You can get a lot of folks in the door, but you have to like keep them there. And it's kind of like 3 steps, like, get them aware of your project, reach out to them, convert them, engage them, and then retain them, but also get them to invite their friends and build like a bit of a viral coefficient. So it's kind of like a never-ending cohort of new users coming in that you have to be a very data-driven kind of growth hacker. I'm less big on marketing. I'm more about like growth hacking and using data and using funnels and using automations to have like a sustainable way to get new users at a low cost as well, because the days of being able to just spend $20 to $100 a user on Facebook ads is kind of dying, unless you have like a huge LTV that justifies it. But in crypto, you don't. So that's it. And then the last thing I'd say is like it's getting a crossover between, the pie of crypto users is still extremely small. There's like tens of millions globally. It's not crazy. So a lot of people are fighting over the same user. So if you really want to like go mainstream and you really want to go viral, you need to like figure out a way to bring on-chain users to the on-chain world. And so that's another big part of our strategy as well. It's kind of like reaching over to the traditional world and like encouraging those folks to come here. And they're only going to do it selfishly. Like they're not going to do it because like for the reasons we do it, because we love it. They're going to do it because it's like better, faster, cheaper, or helps them earn money or save time. So I think that's important to realize too, is like folks, you got to solve a problem for them or they're just not going to bother.
Hey, Pratik, I'll just add to what Trevor said. People can actually go to game.sapien.io to check out the game that we've built. Again, they're able to label data. The more formal word is RLHF, so it's reinforcement learning from human feedback. But it's really just an exquisite kind of experience, and people can actually see what we're up to. So once again, it's game.sapien.io.
This is actually very interesting because I, as I said, really love the gamified model that you guys are using to train the AI. And just last week in the office, starting with few folks, and they're like always looking out for new apps which are very interesting. The 2 highlights which came last week, one was on the Eclipse part because they have this cow kind of thing and you have to feed her and you earn some points. And second one was this Sapiens thing, which is like a quiz, sort of cards and something. So people are absolutely loving it. It's very low effort but high dopamine kind of a thing, where it is not some stupid task of swaps or I need to do this or need to do that, but it's more interesting from that. So very, very excited to see how this progresses and what kind of different leaderboards or different strategies that you guys even introduced at a later point. Cool. Moving on, I think on the product part, I think we saw a PR and some partnership news which is coming on the base, specifically for this AI. Trevor, you mentioned the founding team has background of starting base or in very, very close touch with it. In terms of the specifically for AI founders who are looking to start something right now, what would be your advice from the perspective of which blockchain to go ahead? I know there are very limited options at this point because at other blockchains are not so ahead in terms of AI, but there are a couple of them. What would be your advice, and what was Sapien's strategy, for that thing?
Yeah, it's kind of a unique thing. Crypto founders have it's kind of harder than a Web2 company in some ways, because you have to pick a chain and do a lot of thinking there. And in the Web2 world, you just pick a cloud. It doesn't really matter, right? You just but a chain does matter, and you have to have a thesis on the vibrantness of that ecosystem and the sustainability of it. And then there's more complexities too, because sometimes, more up and coming chains give you, incentives or benefits, and you got to kind of decide. And if you try to do too many, it creates more complexities, and interoperability still isn't seamless. And so, as an example, my last company, we started out on Ethereum, we ran into roadblocks, and then we chose a different consensus, in this case, substrate. So we kind of went down that road, and there's a lot of pros and cons of changing, but that's kind of the decision and the thesis that we had at the time. And for Sapien, we had a lot of chains kind of, as we kind of came out of stealth, a lot of chains kind of reaching out to us and kind of like doing their sales pitch. And Base just kind of made sense, because it's just an absolutely ruthless team of executors who are just really doing a great job. And secondly, we had that relationship especially through Rowan. I have some experience with the Coinbase folks as well through my last projects, and Coinbase has been great partners. But it was really Rowan who's our CEO, who was a key member at the creation stage of Base. And so it just made a lot of sense, because we kind of, externally, we knew it was doing really well. That's an understatement. Like, Base is absolutely cleaning up right now. And so that's a factor. And then also, like, just having that trust factor and the relationship factor, because even though crypto's, automated and agents and on-chain and like, the people still matter even more so now than ever, having those relationships and having that human level trust. And so for us, it was kind of an easy decision, to be honest.
Awesome. Glad to hear. I think an ecosystem which truly respects, the kind of innovation and constantly supporting, and hopefully, we see more, good projects, who are coming behind and following Sapien's path, onto coming on there. In interest of time, we'll have like last two questions. So Trevor, 2024, was like smashing hit for Sapien. 2025, we're just few weeks and already, a couple of PRs coming out, and, you guys are absolutely making waves, both in terms of product partnerships and fundraising wise. How does, next couple of quarters look like? Any interesting, news on the token, or any other interesting PRs that are upcoming?
Yeah, just follow our Twitter. We're working on a lot of exciting developments right now in terms of the product, in terms of other announcements. I think for me, it's just really about, we need to, as a company, but also as a decentralized AI ecosystem partner, we need to justify our existence. So I tell this, we're in close discussions and partnerships and stuff with a lot of other folks around the decentralized data stack, because even decentralized data now has a lot of steps to it, whether it's data collection, data structuring, training, fine tuning. And so we need to justify our existence. Like, we are the little guy that has to, why do we need to exist? Like, AI is kind of doing well on its own. Why decentralize it? So that's kind of my mission for 2025, is not just as a company, but as a community, be like, oh, look, there's actual real reasons, not just like cypherpunk reasons. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like real reasons why, our industry needs to exist, and we can actually be more distributed. We can be more censorship resistant. We can be cheaper. We can be more efficient. Like, those are the things we need to prove as an industry. So like, we're trying to play our small part in that by saying, oh, look, we have like real revenue from real Fortune 500 companies like Alibaba, Baidu, and Midjourney. We have real users that are making a living structuring data for these folks, and like, we can be kind of the routing engine in the middle, that like a marketplace that kind of helps those folks meet up where they otherwise wouldn't. And we're actually saving our customers capital, and we're actually giving capital back to our users. So that's kind of a 2025, not a big sexy press release. It's just like a lot of little things blocking and tackling to try to create value in the space.
Awesome. One last question, each for Trevor and Sunny. If you guys were starting up, theoretically right now, what would be the couple of ideas that you think, can go or, has bigger potential in these scenarios?
Sunny?
Well, decentralized AI seems like the hot space right now. Yeah, I think there's a lot of fun, and I think AI in general has caught the imagination of so many people. And so yeah, I mean, people who are looking to make a move, I definitely suggest that. And by the way, our Twitter handle is Play Sapien. Yeah, so if anyone wants to check it out, they can stay in touch with all of our updates. Trevor, what do you think?
So platform shifts are rare and exciting and precious. I remember when mobile came out. I'm old enough to remember that, and I never really appreciated the fact that there was a platform shift happening, and I didn't, do something there. And I kind of like looked back and regretted it. And I said, next time there's a platform shift, I'm going to be on top of it. And crypto was the next big one, in my opinion, and was very like early and active there. But guess what? It hasn't even been, well, I guess it has been about every 10 years or so we get a platform shift. And sure enough, here's AI, which may be the biggest and most. So I just encourage everybody, like, get smart on AI. Like, I know that's cliche, but like, do it. There's never been a better time to be alive. There's never been a better time to be a founder. And try to like know a bit of history, the historical context. Usually when there's a new platform shift, the applications take a while to value accrual. So infrastructure is where you kind of want to be. And it's like that in crypto, still is like infrastructure. You need to build, before you put the furniture in the house, you need the foundation, you need the scaffolding, you need the city. So I'm not saying just go into infrastructure. Like, I think we're actually moving towards applications in other areas, but just try to like have a bit of historical context, and then kind of follow where the biggest problems you can solve are, is kind of my advice.
Awesome. Thanks, Trevor and Sunny. Appreciate your time in sharing, all these valuable things. And I hope, we'll see some success stories, some developers getting inspired and, building something which is valuable and in AI space. And we wish, Sapien the best of wishes in 2025. Hopefully you guys, keep on smashing it, and we'll probably catch up next quarter on next updates.
Awesome, dude.
Take care. Thanks, Prateek.
चले गए
Recording on.